Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to A Journey to the End of the Universe. I've done a few videos, I say similar, I don't know if they're actually the same, but you can see in the top right, obviously this is like the big video that everyone's seen, time-lapse of the future, A Journey to the End of Time. And I feel like this is probably the same sort of concept, it must be, but obviously a different, I guess it's a different sort of look at things, or just, I don't know, I don't really know to be honest. I was just suggested this on stream yesterday. And I was going to react to it live, but I just sort of saved it and decided to do it just like now so I could focus on it more, because obviously when you stream, I can focus, but it's a lot harder to just sort of think about certain things that maybe I won't be able to think about when I'm live. So I decided to do the reaction now basically, but yeah, it's from the channel Core Worlds. Never heard of it before, but check it out if you haven't already. I'm sure this is a banging video. I mean, it's got 7 million views, so it's going to be a good one, but yeah man, more space videos are always appreciated, so I'm just excited to check this one out. It's a long one, 30 minutes, so brace yourselves, I guess, but yeah, we're just going to jump into it. To be honest, long videos, I'm not going to talk too much, but yeah, quick shout out to my Instagram, my Twitter, links in the description for those interested. Same for my Patreon, links were there for those interested. And with my streaming, again, I don't know if people care if I stream or not. I do a lot of live reactions when I stream. I'm planning on doing more things in future, maybe gaming, I don't really know yet, but if you want to come and like check in the stream in future, more than merry, man. I've really enjoyed streaming recently, so yeah, it just sort of pops up. I don't really have a schedule, I just sort of do it when I'm sort of free really, but I think I'm doing it this weekend, Saturday I hope. I'm not sure, but I'm hoping Saturday, so if you care about that, there's the reminder. But let's jump into this one and see what this video has to show me, man.
Our universe is one of immense and inconceivable scale, punctuated by at least 76 sextillion stars, oases of light.
Never heard the term, the number dillion before.
Permeating the dark.
Ever? Dillion? Is that after... Where is dillion? I don't think I know after trillion. After trillion, quadrillion... Dillion's somewhere after that. Never heard of it.
There are more stars in our universe than there are grains of sand on every beach on Earth. It's an absurd number that defies human comprehension.
Outrageous, man.
Yet, despite this abundance of cosmic landmarks, there's a certain irony that we live in a universe where the outposts of concentrated matter are few and far between. If each star were indeed shrunk down to the size of a grain of sand, then the typical separation between each grain would be about 6 miles. So that's sort of the distance from here at Columbia to downtown Manhattan in the Greenwich Village.
Crazy.
Now that distance, which is about 4 light years coming back to physical units, is so great that it represents an immense challenge to our modern spacecraft. For example, it would take our most remote spacecraft, Voyager 2, another 80,000 years to traverse such a distance. And that's just our nearest star. The nearest galaxy is 500,000 times further out than this. When faced with such epic distances, such timescales, it seems like the universe simply forbids the dream of human astronauts ever exploring the depths of space. Like a cosmic joke teasing us with jewels of exploration which will always be out of reach.
I mean, when you hear about it like this, it makes you think, how is it ever going to be possible to really truly explore? It's getting people to explore. Maybe you can get these crafts exploring certain areas, but again, 80,000 years to travel, like, it's just nuts, and that's just like, the idea of that for me personally, it makes me think it's not possible, or not possible in my lifetime. But then saying that, 60 years back, they would have not thought what we're doing now is possible, right? I mean, I assume that'd be the case. But I mean, yeah, man. I mean, you probably, in 60 years' time, we'll probably be in like we'll probably be like orbiting stars or something like that. You know what? Technology has so many like just possibilities. You just don't know. Again, orbiting a star is probably a stupid thing to say, but you know what I'm trying to like. Just the idea of like what will happen in 60 years, you just don't know. It could be crazy, man. Technology could be nuts.
And it's at times like these that we tend to dream of other solutions based on exotic physics, such as warp drives or wormholes. But to the best of our knowledge, these are theoretically implausible. What about using real, proven physics? In our recent videos, we discussed the halo drive as a possible means for interstellar travel, but even that system isn't fast enough to get you to other galaxies. Remarkably, there is a trick using proven physics that might allow a person to travel between even distant galaxies on a human lifetime. But like making a deal with the devil, it comes at such a steep price that you might not be so quick to want to sign up. A cost that emerges as a natural consequence of Einstein's special theory of relativity. Today, we're going to be taking a trip on board the constantly accelerating spacecraft.
Okay.
Let's imagine that we have constructed a ship capable of accelerating at 1g for as long as we like. That means that its velocity increases by 10 meters per second for each and every second that ticks by. So for example, after 10 seconds it will be traveling at 100 meters per second and have covered a distance of half a kilometer. We're just gonna leave a
Wait. I didn't.
And after 10 seconds it will be traveling at 100 meters per second and have covered a distance of half a kilometer. We're just going to leave aside the issue of how a spaceship could actually conduct such a feat for the moment and just assume it is true. And that's simply for the purpose of keeping this video focused and on point. And similarly, we are going to assume that a spaceship has perfect shielding, capable of withstanding any kind of impact or radiation you can imagine. One benefit of the constant acceleration would be that this would push the crew back towards the rear of the ship, with the same force that the Earth pins us to the ground, thereby creating artificial gravity, something we've discussed in our previous video in much more depth. And so life on board would be relatively pleasant, working and living much like we do here on Earth. A ship that undergoes constant acceleration starts out slow, but gains ever more momentum over time as its voyage continues. So this is a bit like compound interest. Your gains look small to begin with, but over a long period of time, those gains rapidly accumulate. After just 2.5 hours, we would have sailed past the moon. After 1.5 days, we'd be at Mars.
What?
And after 3 weeks, we'd have overtaken Voyager 2 and left the solar system.
Oh shit. I mean, yeah, the theories are cool. I mean, the theories though, it's the theories. I mean, even getting to this point is so ridiculously hard. But that still is mental, man. The fact that he's even talking about it as if it is some kind of possibility shows there is like a chance.
Altogether.
I mean, a very low chance, I guess, but a chance.
By this point, our ship would be traveling at 40 million miles per hour, or about 6% the speed of light. That's far faster than any spaceship we've built has ever traveled before. It's fast, but it's not fast enough for Einstein's theory of special relativity to really come into play yet. As we leave the solar system, we head out towards our nearest star system, Alpha Centauri, and see it gradually increase in brightness as we approach, whilst the sun rescinds into just another speck of light behind us.
The idea of that happening with the sun is crazy to me. That's like one of the stars in the sky, our sun.
The next year is
Man.
fairly uneventful.
I've seen this film.
Life on board is probably rather mundane as the days, weeks, and months tick by. Yet, with each day, your ship travels about 2 million miles per hour faster than it did the day before.
Bloody hell.
It's now impossible to have a live conversation with your friends and family back on Earth. The time it takes for radio waves to travel back and forth is now many months. Yet,
Right, if you didn't shed a tear in Interstellar, man, I'm sorry, man. I did, and if you didn't, you're a sicko. Nah, I'm joking, but this film is a legendary film. Space films are the coolest ones for me, man. Because it's just, I don't know, they are just really fun. If you've got any good space films, please suggest me some, because I went through a little binge watching session with my girlfriend a few months back, just trying to watch as many space films, but I don't know if I found all of them, so please just suggest me some more if you have any cool ones. I'm not Star Wars, that doesn't count. That's going to piss a lot of people off.
loneliness is somewhat alleviated by regular letters from home, updating you about the latest family news, sports results, scientific breakthroughs, and political scandals back on Earth. After 15 months into your journey, your crew celebrates crossing the first light year. You're now just under 1/4 the distance to Alpha Centauri, but over 1/3 of the way in terms of outbound journey time, and that's thanks to the ship's constant acceleration. There's another milestone that you and your crew realize you have passed as well, and that's what physicists call your Lorentz factor, given by this famous equation right here, has now passed a factor of 2. That means that the time dilation between you and Earthbound observers is now a factor of 2, and thus Earthbound observers would seem to see you moving in slow motion on board the ship. From this point on, Einstein's theory of special relativity will have an ever greater influence on you and your ship. That's because you're now traveling away from the Earth at 87% the cosmic speed limit, the speed of light.
With this theory, I mean, I'm guessing it's going to get to the point where you're going faster than the speed of light, which again, it just sounds insane, but I mean, we're going to see.
Now, if there were no such limit, then you should expect to cross the speed of light in 45 days' time. But Einstein's theory, a theory which has been rigorously tested and proven back on Earth, states that nothing can move faster than the speed of light. Moreover, all observers, no matter what their speed, will always observe the speed of light to be the same. Now, this is very non-intuitive. If a horse chases down a moving train, then the train appears to be moving slower than usual from the horse's perspective. But relativity says that no matter how fast that horse is running, if the train is a beam of light, then it will always appear to recede away at exactly the same speed, the speed of light. The horse can never catch up. If the speed of light is a constant to all observers, then the mind-bending consequence is that space and time are not constant. They shift to accommodate this rule. And that's exactly what happens here with our ship. Time shifts such that observers back on Earth seem to see the crew moving slower than usual on board, and even space shifts such that the ship itself appears squashed in length, and both of those effects scale with this famous Lorentz factor, which at this point in our journey is a factor of 2. This even affects your perceived acceleration. From Earth's perspective, you are now no longer accelerating at 1g, but rather your acceleration appears to be getting ever smaller as you approach the speed of light, despite the fact on board you still feel a 1g acceleration.
See, I don't know what this theory is going into, but this is sort of reminding me of, again, this is in a lot of films, so I don't know if this is true, but I had a few conversations with people in the past, and I was just sort of listening. I wasn't like, because I didn't know much about it, but they were sort of saying about how if you're going faster than the speed of light, like, you'll age differently to how people are at home. And I don't know if it's if you go faster, but if you go to a certain speed, I think it's faster than the speed of light. And that to me just doesn't make sense, how you're aging slower, because sort of time relativity, you're sort of going faster. I don't know how to say it, but yeah. When he said this 1G thing, someone actually suggested this in my stream, the 1G theory. Is it the 1G theory? 1G. Actually, I want to save this for a YouTube reaction, because someone said about it, so I don't actually want to look it up. They said it would blow my mind. Is that kind of what I'm saying, like how you'll age quicker than people on Earth? I think that's how it is.
On board the ship, of course, you and your crew would not think anything had changed. Time appears to be running just like usual.
Oh, here we go.
But you would notice some strange things outside of the ship. Looking back at the sun, you'd notice that it would have appeared to have faded into darkness, much faster than you'd expect from simple distance scaling. By the time your Lorentz factor is 2, it's now 10,000 times dimmer, only detectable with the ship's onboard telescope, as a result of relativistic aberration and time dilation effects. Not only this, but light from the sun now appears increasingly red-shifted due to the relativistic Doppler shift. So red, in fact, that it now emits mostly in the infrared band, where your eyes can't even see it.
Wow.
But ahead of you, the opposite has happened. Alpha Centauri now appears 10,000 times brighter than it would if you were not moving. Yet, most of its radiation is now arriving as high-energy ultraviolet light. Not only this, but the constellations ahead of you would appear distorted, warped into a kind of tunnel vision illusion. In a very real way, as you accelerate ever faster, you begin to disconnect from the rest of the universe. But accelerating forever is not an option because we don't have infinite fuel on board, and at some point we're going to want to slow down, step off the ship, and
how is there even enough fuel to get to this point? Like, that's what I don't
reconnect to the rest of the universe. So one way of doing this is to accelerate your ship up to about the halfway mark in your journey, then flip the ship over on its head and accelerate in the opposite direction, thus bringing you to a stop at some distant destination. Now let's stick
because it's going to take ages to stop, isn't it? Because you're going so damn quick.
with our original destination. That's Alpha Centauri, which is 4.4 light years away. Remember that this means that a beam of light emitted from Earth would take 4.4 years to reach Alpha Centauri. Yet, because of the time dilation effects on board, you would land your ship on one of the Alpha Centauri planets, having aged just 3.5 years.
Wow.
Don't worry, you didn't outrun a beam of light here, because according to clocks back on Earth, the journey took you 6 years. Maybe you spend a few weeks exploring this new planet, then head back on board and make the return journey home. When you get back home, about 7 years would have passed for you, but 12 years for everybody back on Earth. Not a bad timescale to complete a journey to the nearest star. Recall that your ship started decelerating at the halfway mark, 2.2 light years from Earth. That would be about 1.8 years into your journey from your perspective, at which time your ship would be traveling at 95% the speed of light. Let's imagine that a fight broke out on board, and the crew decided they didn't want to go to Alpha Centauri anymore. They wanted to use all of this momentum to go further, far further than anyone dreamed of.
Oh, wow.
Now remember, we're considering here only round-trip scenarios. We'll relax that assumption later, but for now, any journey is defined by 4 phases. Outbound acceleration, outbound deceleration, inbound acceleration, and then inbound deceleration. With that in mind, recall that a round trip to Alpha Centauri would take 7 years for the crew. But now let's go further out. Our sun lives within a region of space of slightly higher hydrogen gas density than usual, a region about 30 light years across and playfully known as the local fluff. A ship which makes a trip to the edge of this local fluff would age 13.4 years during their adventure. Upon return, they'd find that their children were now older than they were, having aged.
Is this actually possible? I feel like this is such a crazy thing to happen. It just doesn't, for me, it doesn't. It sounds like just one of those sort of fantasy things, but at the same time, like people say it, like scientists say it, right? So I'm just sort of like, how? I just don't understand anything. Like, I understand sort of how it works, because obviously going faster than the speed of light, like going close to the speed of light, and like relativity and stuff. But I don't know, man. It really is just something that baffles me in every single way, and just the thought of it is scary, man. It is scary.
Aged those 13.4 years, plus another 50, giving rise to some strange reunions.
God damn. That was his daughter, wasn't it?
Nobody believed me, but I knew he'd come back.
Yeah, this film got me so sad, man.
Because my dad promised me.
Perhaps the crew are not satisfied with just leaving this local fluff though. Perhaps they vote to go further. The local bubble is a larger volume in which the local fluff itself resides, a collection of tens of thousands of stars spanning 300 light years across. In a 1G spaceship, the crew will be able to fly to the edge of the local bubble and return back, and only 22 years would have passed for them. But by the time they return to Earth, they would be historical relics, as 6 centuries would have passed back on Earth. Perhaps the crew would be shocked and alienated by the changes which had transformed society.
Bro, that is bath. This video is nuts, man. Oh, I knew it was going to start getting crazy, bro. I love these sort of videos so much.
Society in those 6 centuries gone by. Let's go further and set a round trip to leave our galactic spiral arm, the Orion Spur, for which the round trip would take 31 years for the crew. This is where things get weird. Remember that your journey is characterized by 4 phases, and at the end of that first phase of acceleration, you're hitting your peak velocity. So if you're journeying out to the edge of the Orion Spur, that first phase would take you about 8 years. But after about 6.5 years, you and your crew would look out of the front window and you would see something very strange. 2/3 of the way into your 7th year of travel, a small patch of the sky ahead looks like it's glowing red. At first, you think that your eyes are simply playing tricks on you after so many years in space, but then you realize that your Lorentz factor by now is 650, and the leftover radiation from the Big Bang, the cosmic microwave background, has now blue shifted all the way from the microwave to visible red light. Over the course of your now final year of outbound acceleration, you and your crew are amazed to see this small patch of the sky ahead grow ever brighter, ever bluer, until at its peak velocity, it's like staring down into the eye of a cosmic rainbow, as if the ship has now finally caught the gaze of the universe itself. Perhaps not satisfied with leaving the Orion Spur, you instead choose to journey to the edge of the galaxy itself, a round trip for the crew of 41 years. Having returned home from their 100,000 light-year round trip, the crew, now in their 60s, would return to an Earth which had witnessed 100 millennia pass by. It's very difficult to imagine how humans would have changed after such a long timescale. Perhaps our ancestors would look different after so many generations of gradual evolution. Perhaps they would speak completely different languages to the ones we recognize today. Maybe they would have even abandoned technology and gone back to a more Neolithic way of living. Maybe even the Earth itself is abandoned at this point, and there are no trace of humans on the Earth at all. Whatever happens at this point, the ship's computer database very likely represents an ancient library containing information long lost to the eons of time back on Earth. But all of this is still within our own galaxy. What if we go truly to the beyond, to another galaxy altogether? Let's go.
This is just our galaxy, oh my god. But they better be having children, because I swear to God, I want this journey to go on and on and on, man. I want the grandsons of the grandsons, their great granddads, their great grandsons. That'll start kind of get a bit weird actually on the ship. Bit of incest on the ship, maybe not, but nah, fuck it. You know what? In the means of science, just do it, boys and girls. Just do it.
Go to Andromeda.
What's wrong with
In a
me, man?
56-year epic round trip, you and your crew return in old age to Earth, having borne witness to another galaxy firsthand. But back on Earth, there is very likely no one even recognizable as human by this point, with 5 million years having passed by.
What?
You and your crew are very likely the last humans in the universe. Although there are no humans left, the Earth looks better than you've ever seen it before. Biodiversity has almost recovered to pre-human levels, coral reefs have recovered across the planet, and cities and concrete have disappeared as nature has now reclaimed what was always hers. If we wish to venture further afield than Andromeda, then we may start to need life extension technologies for the crew. Voyaging beyond our cluster of galaxies, the Virgo cluster, would require a round trip of 67 years for the crew. The Virgo cluster lives within the Laniakea supercluster of galaxies, a region of space spanning hundreds of millions of light years and containing tens of thousands of galaxies. Your round trip now would take 76 years. At peak velocity during that journey, your Lorentz factor would be 250 million, a speed of 0.999999 998 times the speed of light. By this point, the cosmic microwave background will have appeared to have increased from its ambient 2.73 Kelvin.
Also, what a video, man. These guys put some crazy research into this and some crazy, just like, I don't know, whatever he's done, it's incredible. The editing and everything, man. Absolutely insane, this video.
In temperature to over 1 billion degrees Kelvin. That's the temperature that the universe was after just a few minutes. Kelvin 2 point. The cosmic microwave background will have appeared to have increased from its ambient 2.73 Kelvin temperature to over 1 billion degrees Kelvin. That's the temperature that the universe was after just a few minutes after the Big Bang itself. Needless to say, this would be an extremely hazardous radiation environment for you and your crew, not to mention the now ludicrous shielding requirements to protect against impacts. Sometimes you hear it said that as you get to relativistic speeds, the momentum of the ship increases so much that that somehow protects it from impacts. But from the perspective of the ship, it is not moving. It is the particles, the space debris out there that has the extreme momentum, and thus collisions with these tiny particles would not be for the faint of heart. After completing your 76-year round trip to the edge of the Laniakea supercluster, your home system would be barely recognizable. Landing on Earth, continents would have shifted into unfamiliar positions. The surface is now devoid of plants or animals, and you can no longer even breathe the air around you.
Wow.
Over the last billion years, the sun's luminosity has
Billion? Oh, this is outrageous,
now
man.
increased by almost 10%.
I've said it so many times, but it is just ridiculous. This video is nuts, man. I hate and love these videos so much because I just want to know more, but there's only so much you can know at this point, man. They leave me wanting to know so much more.
Which in turn has increased the rate of weathering on the Earth. That weathering has removed carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, so much so that photosynthesis is now no longer possible, ending the reign of plant-based life, ceasing oxygen production, and collapsing the food chain. By this point, even plate tectonics may have shut off as water evaporates from the Earth's surface. These would be the last days of multicellular life on Earth. Beyond this point, only simple microbial life will be able to cling on to existence for maybe a few 100 million years at best. The living Earth is gasping her last breath. And so I think it would be a mournful return to come back to your home planet and see it not go out with a bang, but be suffocated with a slow, drawn-out, cruel death, perhaps reminding you of the fate which likely awaits yourself, as now even your own body is feeling the effects of time.
Onward to the end.
One might suggest that there's no reason why Laniakea should be the limit to these types of round trips. After all, the time dilation is now so extreme that we can travel exponentially further with each passing year. Indeed, you sometimes hear it claimed that we could even travel to the edge of the observable universe using constant acceleration. Those are galaxies some 46 billion light years away from us. But no matter how much we accelerate, no matter how extreme time dilation becomes, we will never be able to reach the edge of the observable universe. Now, why should this be? Well, when we talk about journeys of billions of light years, then the expansion of the universe itself starts to interfere with our voyage. In 1998, two teams of astronomers used distant supernovae to independently discover that the rate of the universe's expansion, something known since Edwin Hubble's time, was in fact increasing. It was itself accelerating. We do not fully understand why this is happening, but the cause is usually labeled dark energy. Using these measurements of the rate of the universe's expansion, we can define various thresholds, various horizons which limit our interactions with the outside universe. For example, the so-called particle horizon is the greatest distance which a particle of light could have traveled since the Big Bang itself, essentially, which was 13.8 billion years ago. Now, you might naively think that that means the distance should be 13.8 billion light years, but because of the expansion of the universe, it's actually a much greater distance, ends up being 46 billion light years across. Now, coming back to our spaceship adventure, if I want to make a round trip over cosmic distances, then this expansion causes the distances between regions to gradually grow during my trip, meaning I have to travel further than I thought I did. Now, this isn't important if you're traveling within a gravitationally bound region like a galaxy, say, that resists the expansion. But it is very important as we voyage beyond our galactic supercluster. As far as I can tell, there is no previous mention or calculation of a round-trip horizon in the literature, but we should be able to calculate it by solving the following set of equations. I'll link to a paper down below where you can learn all about how to do these kinds of calculations yourself. But to save you that pain, the resulting proper distance turns out to be 8.3 billion light years away. This distance represents a cosmic point of no return. Once you cross it, there's no coming back. You would never be able to get back home, even traveling at the speed of light. And that's because the expansion of the universe simply outpaces you. And yes, space can and does expand faster than the speed of light. So it would be a strange feeling on board the ship as you cross that threshold, knowing that no matter what happens from this point on, you would never return home and see the Earth again.
Oh, damn.
Since we can't return home beyond this point, let's not even try. Let's change the rules of our trip and make it a one-way ticket. Now, I'm still going to assume that the second half of our journey is a deceleration phase where we come to a stop. And that's simply because it's very difficult to talk about how much time has passed by unless we return to the same inertial frame of reference from which we left. Now, liberated from the need to come back home, you might expect that we can travel far, far further into the universe, perhaps even to the edge of the observable universe. But again, the answer is no. Even if we accelerate forever, we'll never catch up to the so-called event horizon, which lies at twice the point of no return. This represents the greatest distance which a beam of light emitted from Earth now could ever reach in infinite time. Because parts of the universe are expanding at the speed of light, then we can never catch up to such regions and thus end up being limited to distances within this so-called event horizon. But what the hell? I mean, we've come this far, let's just keep going. After this point, we're not really a spaceship anymore, because no matter how hard we try, we never catch up with the event horizon. And in fact, the rest of the universe around us expands away in all directions ever faster. Soon, there are no galaxies, no clusters, nothing around us as the universe expands ever faster beyond our view. We've become isolated, trapped in the void. If we're not really a spaceship anymore, perhaps we've become a time ship. Could we use our ship to travel to the end of time itself? Now, certainly if you naively use the equations of special relativity, things certainly do look extreme. For example, with an acceleration and deceleration phase spanning 2 centuries by the ship's clock, a clock back on Earth should have recorded 100,000 trillion years. Enough time that even protons would have theoretically decayed to leave no new...
Oh, it's a joke, man. It's actually a joke, man. Oh, the world doesn't make sense, man. It just doesn't. Nothing makes sense, man.
Ionic matter left.
Jeez.
But here's the thing. It doesn't really make much sense to even talk about time dilation anymore. And that's because time dilation is defined as being relative, hence the name relativity, to our initial inertial frame of reference, which in our case was the Earth. But by this point, after so much time, after crossing so many light years, the Earth lies beyond our cosmic horizon. We are no longer causally connected to it. Put another way, it is now literally impossible to compare clocks to those back on Earth. To make matters worse, not only can you not compare to Earth's clocks, but you can't even compare to any other clock by this point. That's because by now the universe has expanded by a factor of 10 to the 10 to the 55, and statistically, there would very likely be no other particles within your entire observable universe except for you. Even the cosmic microwave background has thinned out to nothing by now. How can we even talk about measuring time, comparing clocks, when the clocks effectively exist in separate universes by this point? The very definitions underpinning time dilation have effectively unraveled. And so here, finally, your journey comes to a close. In complete isolation, a perfect void. You and your crew have become a monument to times that once were, to a universe that once was. And perhaps as you and your crew finally pass away into the night, you think back to that fateful day that you agreed to step on board this vessel, to be locked into a tomb that hurtled into nothingness. The universe right now is in its youth. We live in its flourishing years, with stars sparkling across the sky, and perhaps life too proliferates across the cosmos. This is its golden era, and we are a product of it. There's never been a better time to be alive, and there probably never will be again. Like all things, the universe must eventually end. But for now, we have a moment in the sun. Summer days to live, grow, and build by. Let us use the time that we have wisely.
This was outrageous, man. This made me think so many different things. Oh, these videos are so like... Oh, I just want to know everything, man. I just want to know everything. I can watch and listen to your videos for hours. I really like your videos here, man. Shout out to this guy. I'm going to subscribe to him, actually. This is a really well put together video, man. Imagine if aliens visited us, but it turns out they are just ancient earthlings who just returned from a grand space voyage, and to them it's only been 60 years. What's happened to all of you? We are either alone in the universe or we aren't. Both are equally terrifying. A relatively entertaining video. Fuck's sake. It took me 30 minutes to watch the video, but I aged only 15 minutes. That's how interesting it was. I watched this again today, maybe the 5th time. I would gladly nominate this video as the best on YouTube from beginning to the epilogue. It was an absolutely incredible video, man. God, these make you think so much. Now I understand why people want me to watch this live on stream, man. I just want to know everything, man. I want to know why we're here, what the point of everything is, why space is a thing, what the universe is doing. I want to know if we're like in an alternate universe, if there's like loads of different universes. Oh man, I want to know everything. I wonder if we'll ever find out, man. God, that would be incredible. Maybe I'll do a reaction one day to a video of us finding out everything. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this reaction. If you're watching this video in 50 years time, I'm probably dead, but appreciate it. Unless time relativity saves me and we're, I don't know, we're living life on Jupiter or something. That's not possible either. Yeah. Until next time, like, subscribe.